Now, before we look at the text of the poem, let us briefly discuss what the poem is about. So, as in the previous poem with Ode to the West Wind, where West Wind was personified, it was personified as a mighty spirit, it was personified as a powerful spirit. It was a spirit that was everywhere. It was in the skies, it was in the earth, it was in the oceans, and it was a spirit that inspired awe, that inspired feelings of fear in the hearts of every object of nature. The leaves ran away, the dying leaves, autumn leaves, they were running away, scattering in different directions as a west wind approached. The simile that he gives you is that of a magician. So that is the awe-inspiring nature of west wind. Similarly, the clouds, they are scattering, they're changing, shifting positions in the sky out of fear of the impression that Shelley wants to give you is that it is out of the awe, it is out of fear of the west wind that they are shifting position, and out of awe, you know, one year dies and the wind itself sings the last song of the dying year, and then out of fear he tells us in the third part how the vegetation in the under the ocean that trembles, it trembles, even the ocean waves, they tremble and they're shivering for fear of the power of the west wind. So such is the impact of the west wind, such is the fearful impact of the west wind. So it comes out as a strong spirit, as a fierce spirit. In the same way here you will see that the skylark is personified as a spirit. It is not just an object of nature, but the way Shelley is going to address the bird, the way Shelley is going to address skylark, it is as if it is a spirit of some kind. It is a spirit which can teach about happiness, which can teach about morals to mankind. So it is a kind of a celestial being, but we will see Shelley questioning the nature of the bird itself in the poem. And as a bird you see soars into the sky, singing happily, she's hidden from view, but her song fills the earth and the sky. Just like the west wind was everywhere, it was all around, it had covered all spaces from the sky to the earth. In the same way the bird, its bird's song, the bird singing, it has filled up the whole universe, it has filled up the skies, and it has filled up the earth. And the bird's song is a symbol of happiness and peace. So it's the song of the bird, it is the singing of the bird that is important here, and that is used as a metaphor for happiness and peace, and that is used for inspiration here, that is looked up to for inspiration. And we shall see that the skylark and the singing of the skylark, the song of the skylark, it is described through different images in the poem. Shelley creates for you different similes, and he describes the singing skylark, he describes the song of the skylark through different metaphors in the poem, or similes in the poem. And in one stanza he describes the singing bird with the poet composing a poem, and another stanza he describes the singing skylark as a maiden in love, as a young girl singing her song about love. And in the third stanza he describes it as a glowworm which gives out light in the darkness, which spreading light in the darkness, and then as a rose which spreads fragrance in the air. And also it is compared to the sound of the rain. So Mary Shelley wrote a bit about the poem. I'm going to read it out to you. She said, "In the spring we spent a week or two nearly gone. It was on a beautiful summer evening while wandering among the lanes whose myrtle hedges were the bowers of the fireflies that we heard the caroling of the skylark." As I told you in the very beginning, the poet was inspired by the song of the bird, and as a result of which he composed these lines. So it is based on a personal experience, as Mary Shelley's own comments verified. But she also mentions some other things. She says, as they were wandering among the lanes, they saw fireflies, they saw the glowworms, which Shelley also mentions in his poem. So he sought inspiration from all these objects of nature, and he in fact even created images from nature to describe this object of nature. And like the Ode to the West Wind, the Skylark was inspired by a specific experience. Shelley is inspired by the happiness in the song of the bird. This is what I've just explained. And then there are two main lines of thought in the poem. The first is to understand what the bird stands for or is comparable to. So in the first half of the poem, you shall see Shelley trying to find out, trying to know what the bird is about. So he's looking into the nature of the bird and its singing, both. So he is trying to judge what it is comparable to, because he's going to associate the bird, compare the bird to different other objects to show to you what it means to him, or what the song of the bird means to him. And in the second half of the poem, he's going to look at the secret behind the skylark's happiness, the happiness that is visible from the song of the bird. He's going to find out why the bird is singing so happily, why the bird is so happy, what is the reason behind the happy song that she's singing. So the poem, you can say, is divided into two parts, because in one part he's exploring the nature of the bird, the identity of the bird and its singing, and in the second part he's trying to find clues to the happiness of the bird. Let us now look at the text of the poem itself, and let us see how Shelley pays tribute to this bird, the skylark. Hail to thee, blithe spirit. This is how he begins. He says, hail to thee, blithe spirit. He's happy. He's welcoming the bird. So when we want to welcome someone, we say hail. Hail, hail queen, hail the king. So he's welcoming the bird. He's happy that the bird has lightened up the atmosphere with its singing. But you see, in the very first line, he calls it the spirit. But he puts together the two words that form the theme of the poem also. The bird is addressed as a spirit. It is not something that has no feelings or emotions, and it cannot teach us any moral lesson. It is something that has got a spirit. It can feel. It's got its own emotions, and he tells us that it is a blithe spirit. Blithe means happy. So he calls the bird a happy spirit. He says, bird, thou never wert, that from heaven or near it pourest thy full heart in profuse strains of unpremeditated art. Bird, thou never wert, and hyphen. He says, he doesn't call her a bird, he says, you were always a spirit. O skylark, you were never just a bird, you were always a spirit, because you always had a lesson to teach to us. Then he says that from heaven or near it pourest thy full heart. As I said earlier on, he gives it a divine status also, because he says that the song of the bird seems to be coming from the heavens, because the bird is soaring above in the sky. It is hidden from view because of the clouds. So Shelley cannot see the bird soaring in the sky, hidden from view because of the clouds, but he can hear the song of the bird pouring down from the sky, and lighting up the whole environment, lightening up the whole environment. So he says, as if you know the song is coming from heaven, from above, and here it pours thy full heart. It is pouring out his full heart. It is singing with full emotions, with full feeling of happiness, in profuse strains of unpremeditated. Unpremeditated means without thinking. It is thinking in profuse. Profuse once again means intense. So full of emotions the bird is, that it is singing a song in profuse, intense strain, and without thought it continues. It is continuing. So maybe you can compare, if you haven't ever heard the Skylark song, you can compare her song to the song of the cuckoo bird, which we all are familiar with, the bird that we have, the blackbird, the quail, which sings whenever it rains. Even these days it's you can hear its song, or in the season of monsoon you can hear its song. So the bird is singing with intense feelings. Higher still and higher from the earth thou springest. Like a cloud of fire, the blue deep thou wingest, and singing still dost soar, and soaring ever singest. You see how he, in the last line, he uses alliteration, the sir sound, singing still dost soar, and soaring ever singest. He uses these alliterations, these similar sounds with the poets. In fact, all poets use it to emphasize a certain thing. Shelley here also is using it to give it a kind of sonority, to give it a kind of, you know, heightened sense of intensity. So he says, the higher and higher from the earth thou springest. The bird is soaring away from the earth. It is climbing the sky. It is going higher and higher towards the sky, like a cloud of fire. So he can't see it. He says, you are from this distance where we are on the earth, you appear to us like a cloud of fire. So it is a simile. He's comparing it to a cloud which is on fire. Clouds are not actually on fire. A cloud appears to be on fire when it is lighted from the sunlight, which is the sun which is sinking in the evening time. The reddish, orangish sunlight, as it hits the clouds, it puts them aflame. So that is what he's creating for you. So the bird also, and this was the evening time, as Shelley will tell us later on. So this is evening time, and he listens to the bird singing, and he can imagine it soaring higher and higher in the sky. He says, like a cloud which has caught fire from the setting sun. The blue deep thou wingest. The blue deep, he says, you're entering the blue deep. The deepening skies, as the evening time approaches, as the sun starts to set, the sky first turns deeper blue, and then it changes, goes on to take shades of purple and then black. So he says, the blue deep thou wingest. As you soar high, the sky turns deep blue, and singing still dost soar, and soaring ever singest. The significant thing is that he says, as you are soaring, as you are flying high above, you are singing, and as you are soaring, you are always singing. So he says the song never stops. You don't need to pause for rest, but you keep on singing. So the song is continuous, without pause, without break. In the golden lightning of the sunken sun, over which clouds are brightening, thou dost float and run, like an unbodied joy whose race is just begun. Now as the sun is setting, the whole atmosphere turns golden, as it is in the evening time. So he says, in the golden lightning of the sunken sun. As the sun is setting, as it is sinking, everything turns golden, and he says, over which the clouds are brightening, and the top of the cloud still carries the light, the setting light. Thou dost float and run. He says, now he's imagining it. He cannot see the bird. The bird, as I said, is hidden from the view of the poet. He can see the dense clouds above, but he knows that the song, or from the way the song is reaching him, that the bird is in the sky, and if it is in the sky, it must be hidden from his view because of the cloud. So he says, he imagines now the bird floating and then running, floating and running. Now running is not associated with birds. He says he imagines the bird also running, as if it's got, with the feet that it's got, it is running on the surface of the cloud, like an unbodied joy whose race is just begun. So unbodied is unbounded, extreme joy. Extreme joy, but it also suggests energy. Unbodied, it also suggests energy. Says, with that energy that those people have whose race has yet to begin, who are standing behind the line ready for race, and they're filled with energy and hope. So he says, he compares the bird to someone who's so filled with energy, as a person whose race has yet to begin, and it has not ended, that he's tired now. So it is the spirit of the bird, which is full of energy, that he makes comparison here to. Then he says, the pale purple even melts around thy flight, like a star of heaven in the broad daylight. Thou art unseen, but yet I hear thy shrill delight. The pale purple even melts under thy flight. Now he says, now the sky is turning from deeper blue, it's now turning purplish, and it's pale purple. He says, even the pale purple melts around thy flight, meaning the bird is soaring high and high, and it's not stopping. It's not stopping in its movement, it's not even stopping its song. And he says, it is climbing up the sky like a star of heaven. Now he compares it to a star of heaven that is shining brightly from heaven. He says, in the broad daylight thou art unseen, but yet I hear thy shrill delight. The reason he compares the bird to a star of heaven is because the stars are only visible at night. We can only see them, glimpse them at night time, and in the daytime their light is not visible, and so they are also not visible. So he compares the bird to the star, because he wants to say that just like the star, the bird is not visible in daytime. We can't see it, but we can hear its song. Keen as are the arrows of that silver sphere, whose intense lamp narrows in the white dawn clear, until we hardly see, we feel that it is there. Then he says, keen as are the arrows of that silver sphere. Now he's talking about moon. He compared her to the star. Now he talks about the arrows of the silver sphere. These arrows, these are the moonlight leaving the moon. So and that spreads in all directions, and it covers the earth, whose intense lamp, he says, an intense lamp is once again the moonlight. He says, the bright moon lamp which narrows in the white dawn clear. And this moonlight, what happens to it when the dawn approaches? As the dawn or the morning time approaches, the moon and the moonlight becomes dim. They become dimmer until we hardly see. So he says, then there comes a moment when the sun is out in its full glory, And it's at that time that this moon and the moonlight are not visible anymore. So he says, but although it's not visible, it is invisible from view. The moon is hidden from our view. Its light is hidden from our view. But he says, we know that it is still there. We know that it is still in the sky. In the same way, he says, oh, he's talking about the bird, the skylark, and he says, although I can't see it, I can't see you, I know that you are there. I know that you are there because I can hear your song. I can hear your singing. All the earth and air with thy voice is loud. As when night is bare, from one lonely cloud, the moon rains out her beams and heaven is overflowed. Then he says, the whole air, the whole earth, he says, it is filled with thy voice. Thy means yours. So it is filled with your voice, which is loud, which is ringing and has charged everything in the air or in the earth. As when night is bare, from one lonely cloud, the moon rains out her beams and heaven is overflowed. And he says, your voice has the same effect, gives the same kind of hope, and gives the same kind of happiness to us, the human beings, to mankind, as when at the time of the night, he says, the moon is hidden behind the cloud, and the night appears to be dark. But then all of a sudden, the cloud shifts, and the moon, with all its glorious moonlight, it shines through. And the whole, he says, the heavens and the earth, they are overflowed with the moonlight. So he's comparing the bird and the effect of the bird's songs, and the effect of hope, and the feeling of hope and the feeling of happiness that the song of the bird arouses. He compares that to the moonlight, the sudden appearance of the moonlight from behind a cloud. So when all is happening wrong, the song of the bird can lift your moods. It can give you happiness. It can give you hope. Then he says, what thou art we know not. What is most like thee? From rainbow clouds there flow not drops so bright to see, as from thy presence showers a rain of melody. He says, we don't know what you are. I told you that in this first part he's going to talk about the nature of the bird. He will try and find out how to describe the bird to you, or who to connect it to, what to connect it to. He says, I don't know what you are, or if there's anything like you on this earth, if there's anything on this earth that I can compare you to. From rainbow clouds there flow not drops so bright to see, as from thy presence. So here you've got another comparison. He says, even the rainbows does not carry colors, does not have more to offer as your song, as a song that showers, that comes like showers, that come like rain, that come like the rain of melody, that comes like rain and gives hope and happiness to mankind, to the dying mankind, to the depressed mankind, to the sad mankind, to the dejected mankind. He says, this effect of your song on mankind is that it gives them hope, it gives them a feeling of happiness, it lifts their mind, it lifts their mood, it lifts their emotions. The same, he says, effect is not achieved even by the rainbow or the cloud that showers rain. So even the cloud bringing about rain is less a sign of hope than the song of the bird for Shelley here. Now begins his, from this part he will begin his direct comparisons. He's trying to discover the nature of the bird, as he just told us, and he wants to see if he can compare the bird and its singing to any other thing. So his first comparison is to a poet. He says, like a poet hidden in the light of thought, singing hymns unbidden till the world is wrought to sympathy with hopes and fears it heeded not. He compares the bird to a poet composing his own poem, like the bird singing its song. So it is a poet composing its own song, composing its poem. So he says, just like this bird is hidden, but its song is overflowing in the whole, has overflowed the earth and the sky. He says, in the same way, he compares the bird to a poet which is hidden, who's hidden behind his thoughts, who's hidden behind his works, who's hidden behind his poems, who's hidden behind his plays or novels or anything. So he says, because he's talking about poet, so naturally he's talking about poetry. So he must be talking about poems, not novels or plays, I'm sorry. But he means that as a poet is hidden behind his words, he's hidden behind his thoughts. And when he sings hymns is a word used for religious poems, but he uses it here to talk about the sacredness of what comes from the poet's mouth or from his mind. If you need to remember that for Shelley, the poet was like a prophet. His words were prophetic. They were important, they had significance, they could reform and change the society like a prophet and a prophet's words can. So this is why he uses words which emphasize his view of the role of the poet. Singing hymns unbidden till the world is wrought to sympathy with hopes and fears it heeded not, he says. So a poet, like a poet composing his poems, like a poet hidden behind his own words, creating his piece of art or his work of art, which can raise sympathies and hopes and fears in the hearts of people, and it can affect them for change, for a better change. So he is in fact comparing the bird to the poet who's composing his poem to awaken the world. Secondly, he compares this singing bird to a young girl making music, singing song to soothe her own love, to make peace with her own self. She's trying to soothe her own feelings and emotions. So he compares the skylark and her song to a maiden and a maiden's song. He says, like a high-born maiden in a palace tower, soothing her love-laden soul in secret hour, with music sweet as love, which overflows her bower. Like a high-born maiden. She's not talking about an ordinary girl here. It's a princess that she's talking about. High-born, born to a high family. He says, like a high-born maiden in a palace. So it's a princess because she's in a palace. This may bring to your mind all these fairy tales that we have for children about princesses like Cinderella, Snowball, Rapunzel. So, and especially Rapunzel, who's stuck in a tower, high tower. She's got long hair, she cannot climb down, and she sings songs to soothe her own feelings. So this is what he's comparing it to. He says, soothing a love-laden soul in secret hour, with music sweet as love, which overflows her bower. Bower is the place where she lives, her home. It's basically a place of, it's a habitat, it's a place of living. So the bird is like a young girl, is like a highborn maiden, is like a princess who's soothing her own feelings of love and emotions of love, and is singing through her song, through her music. Thirdly, he compares the bird to a glowworm golden, to the fireflies in a dell of dew, scattering unbeholden its aerial hue among the flowers and grass which screen it from the view. So the glowworms are also not visible, easily visible to the eye. It's just we can only detect them through the light. At the tail of the fireflies there is some glowing substance which glows, which twinkles at night. Jugnu जिनको हम कहते हैं, the fireflies or the glowworms which glow, which give out light, spread out light in darkness. It is a symbol used for many poets because they cut through darkness and they spread out light. So he says, in a dell of dew, living surrounded by dew, scattering, but scattering, he says, their aerial hue, the light, among the flowers and grass which screen it from the view. And they will spread their light through those grass and the flowers which are actually hiding the insect from the view. Then he compares the bird to a rose, like a rose covered completely in its own green leaves. So like a rose which is hidden from view because its own thick green leaves have surrounded it from all directions. And why have they surrounded? He says, by warm winds deflowered, till the scent it gives makes faint with too much sweet these heavy winged thieves. He says, by warm winds deflowered. He's comparing it to a rose which is hidden from you but which has now lost its petal, which has been deflowered because of the warm winds. But as the rose deflowers, the fragrance spreads. The warm winds which deflowers it, it also carries the fragrance of the rose. It carries it and spreads it in the whole garden. Or there is, it makes faint with too much sweet these heavy winged thieves. Heavy winged thieves are the bumblebees. Bhamvara jisko hum kehte hain. It's the bumblebees that suck nectar from the flowers. So he says, even the scent that this wind carries and spreads all around, it is so strong that it even makes faint the heavy winged thieves. So up till here he's compared the bird to four objects, and as you can see there are few things that are common. Just like the skylark is hidden from the poet's view, it is invisible, he cannot see it. In the same way, all these four objects of nature that he's talked about, they are hidden from the view. So the simile that he creates for you, it's not totally irrelevant or different. He's kept up the same idea. He compares first to a poet who's hidden behind his own work, who's hidden behind his own words, who's behind his own thought, behind his own poem, and then he compares the bird to a young maiden, to a highborn maiden, and this highborn maiden, he says, she's hidden in a tower somewhere, in a tall tower or in a palace somewhere, and the passers-by can only hear her singing, can only hear her music, can only hear her song and be affected by it. And in the third part he talks about the glowworm, the fireflies, how that too is invisible. The insect is not visible because it is hidden in the dense thicket of the leaves and the flowers and the grass and the dewdrops. It's just the light which makes it visible. And then the rose is hidden from view because it is surrounded from all sides by its own green leaves. But we get to know of the presence of the rose through the fragrance that has spread, that spreads everywhere. So what's it's a common theme that he has taken and built up in all these similes also. And the second thing is the song. It's a message, just like the Skylark's song, the Skylark singing is able to move the poet, and its song is resounding and is echoing in the whole valley. It's echoing in the earth, in the skies, and the poet feels that everything is affected by the song, by the beauty of the song of the bird. In the same way, he says, he talks about the poet's words, which can affect with an A, which can affect change in the society, which can bring about change in ideas of other people. And then he talks about the young maiden, how her song, how her music can impress all those who hear it, all the passers-by who hear it, and they cannot be, but feel moved by her song. And then the light, the metaphor of light spreading in the darkness is already a very strong image of how goodness prevailing over the evil values. So like a glowworm, he says, the light from the glowworm, as it ends darkness, or as it shows light to those who want to find way in this dark, in the dark ways of the earth. And then lastly, he talks about the rose. It's not the rose that's important, but it's the fragrance of the rose. And it is a fragrance that spreads, it is a fragrance that affects us. So it's the words of the poet, it's a song of the maiden or the music of the maiden, and it is the light of the glowworm, and it is the fragrance of the rose, which are important because they are the messengers, they are the harbingers of change, and they are the ones that can influence. So the skylark, the source is invisible, but it is through their work, through their deeds, that they become known. And that is how Shelley also wants to be known. He wants to be known through his work. He wants to reform and change the society through his work. Then we see that he talks about the spring showers. The vernal showers are spring showers. He says, sound of vernal showers on the twinkling grass, rain awaken flowers. All that ever was, joyous and clear and fresh, thy music doth surpass. He says, the song of the bird is as welcoming as the spring showers. And the spring showers are welcoming because after the long drought of winter, the spring showers give life to the budding flowers, to the budding leaves, to the budding plants, all the plants that are as the winter has now ended and are trying to bloom, and the buds are waiting to open up. The spring showers act as a catalyst. They give them the life that they require. So he says, but he compares not just not the bird, not just to the showers, but he compares to the sound of the vernal showers. So it's the song of the bird and the song of the showers. He says, on the twinkling grass, as the wind, as the rain falls, as the showers, spring rain falls to the ground, awakens flowers, blooms flowers, and makes everything, he says, joyous and clear and fresh. In the same way, he says, your music, your song, make everything joyous, clear and fresh. But he says it has more effect. It has a stronger and a more powerful effect than the spring showers. Teach us, sprite or bird, what sweet thoughts are thine. I have never heard praise of love or wine that panted forth a flood of rapture so divine. So now he's coming to the other part that I told you in the very beginning. He's gradually building up towards towards that other, the second part, the second half of his theme, which is, after he's discussed with you the nature of the word, now he's going to look at the reasons for its happiness, reasons behind the bird's actual feeling of elation and happiness and this heightened ecstasy with which it is, it is influencing everything around it. So first he asks her, the bird, to teach us. It's not just a bird, it's a spirit. So he says, teach us. Teach us what are your sweet thoughts. Teach us your happy thoughts. How is it that you can stay happy? Tell us, teach us the art to stay happy. Teach us the art to think sweet thoughts. Because he says, I have never heard a song so beautiful. He says, that panted forth a flood of rapture so divine. He says, I've never heard a song as beautiful as this one. So I've never heard a song, be it in love of, be in love for someone, be it about love or in praise of wine. He says, no song has ever been as beautiful as your song is. It is, in fact, as he calls it, divine. It's her, the song of the bird is divine because he wants to seek, he's seeking inspiration from it, and he wants to learn the art. And he says, chorus, hymnal or triumphal chant matched with thine would be all but an empty want. So chorus hymnal is a religious hymn. Triumphal chant, triumph means victory, success after a battle normally. So it's a song of triumphal chant. Chant is a song. So he says, what is your song? Is it a holy song? It is a religious hymn that you are singing? Or is it a song of victory? Or then he says, match with thine would be all but an empty want. But he says, no, it can't be. Because if I compared a religious song, a religious hymn, or if I were to compare a triumphal chant to your song, they will fail in beauty, in glory, in the power of effect. So he said, match, they have no match with your song. They would be like an empty want. An empty want. A want is like a boast or a swagger, a boast. So he says, your song, in fact, he wants to say that the song of the skylark is more powerful than a religious hymn or a triumphal chant or a victory song. And he says it is a thing wherein we feel there is some hidden want. Okay, so he says, in those songs we feel that something is lacking. They still lack something, some depth, some truth. But in your song, it is profuse, it is intense, it has got all the truth that it needs. And then he says, what objects are the fountains of thy happy strain? What fields or waves or mountains? What shapes of sky or plain? What love of thine own kind? What ignorance of pain? Now he's wondering what the song is about, just like Wordsworth was wondering what the solitary reaper might be singing about. He was mesmerized by the song of the solitary reaper. He could not understand the song, if you remember. He couldn't understand the song, but the music and her singing had captivated him. And had captivated him so much that he started to wonder what could she be singing about. In the same way, He's now asking himself, what could it be about? He says, what are the objects? What objects are the fountains of thy happy strain? What is the reason behind this happy strain, happy song, happy music of yours? What fields or waves or mountains? Because it is a flying object, it is a moving object, it is a moving spirit. He says, and when it moves about, it sees fields. So he says, what happy fields have you seen that you're bursting out in this joyous song? What waves did you see? What mountains? What shapes of sky, he says, or what shapes of plain? So what beauty have you seen that you're singing so joyously? Or what love of thine own kind? Or are you singing out of love? Is it love pouring forth? Is it love pouring out of your heart? What ignorance of pain? This is the key. This last part is significant. He says, what ignorance of pain? He says, or are you singing happily? Or are you singing joyously because you are ignorant of pain? Because you don't know, you have not seen any pain, you have never feel hurt, you have never been sad in your life. Is it because you are ignorant of pain? Is it because you have never experienced pain? So he is trying to find out the secret of the happiness of this bird. With thy clear, keen joyance, languor cannot be, shadow of annoyance never came near thee. Thou lovest, but never knew love's sad satiety. He says, with thy clear joy, keen joyance, languor is tiredness, when we feel tired. He says, with this sense of happiness or joy that you have, you can never feel tired. You will never be tired, O bird. That is why you keep on singing. When one is tired, sometimes we are tired when we are burdened with so many thoughts and depressing and sad thoughts. And since a bird has never experienced pain or has never been humbled down by sad thoughts, he says, you're only left with clear sense of joy or happiness. Shadow of annoyance never came near thee. He says, you never had to experience anger. Anger, he says, not even the shadow of anger came near thee. Thou lovest, but never knew love's satiety. He says, you love. It is apparent, he says, from your song that you love. You have a heart that can love, but he says, your love is pure, your love is divine. Your love is special because it has never experienced sadness, sad satiety. It has never experienced that fullness with which comes sadness. After you've achieved love, he says, then we are filled with sadness because maybe we are disappointed that it has ended so soon, or we are disappointed because it did not meet our expectations. So he is comparing the bird's life to the human condition here, and he says that the experiences of pain, annoyance, tiredness and love satiety, that they never came near the bird. They are never part of the bird's life. So these things have never been part of the bird's life. He is a spirit of another world. But you have to remember this, it is important, because he's talking about the misery of the human condition. He's telling us that a heart cannot be as happy as this bird's heart. Waking or asleep, thou of death must deem things more true and deep than we mortals dream, or how could thy notes flow in such a crystal stream? He now gives you a reason, the reason for the bird's happiness, and that reason is similar to what Keats, as you shall later see, gives you, that the bird has no thought of death. The bird has no fear of death like we mortals have, like we humans have. We do not know, we can never guess what is on the other side of death. We cannot see beyond death. We cannot see the other world. So we are afraid of death. We don't know whether there is darkness after death or there is light after death. We don't know whether there is life after death or there is no life after death. There are so many different beliefs amongst mankind. So it is death which looms in the hearts of the mortals, and it is because of this fear we can never be happy, he says. We can never be as happy as the bird is. He says, waking or asleep, so whether we are awake or we are asleep, the thought of death is always with us. He says, thou of death must deem things more true and deep than we mortals dream. So your dreams must be more, you have more sublime things. They must be more true and deep than we dream, or how could thy notes flow in such a crystal stream, he says. You must not know the fear of death. That is why you can sing so joyously. Your notes can flow in such crystal clear, happy stream. He says, the skylark knows the mystery of death. It knows what lies ahead of death. It is a spirit. It is not an ordinary bird, remember that. It is a spirit that Shelley is addressing here, and it is a spirit. It can see beyond things. It can, for it, past and the future, past and the present and the future are connected. They are not separate, and they are not hidden from view. So the bird can, Shelley suggests that it can see beyond death, and it knows what lies ahead of death, after death. So it has no fear. It is singing peacefully. It is singing happily. We look before and after, and pine for what is not. Unsincerest laughter with some pain is fraught. Our sweetest songs are those that tell us of saddest thought. Very popular lines. You find these lines most of the time also written on some of the greeting cards, but they're significant lines, and you shall see here that Shelley speaks about the shortness of life that we have. He says, and he talks about the dilemma of mankind, talks about the dilemma of humans. He says, our dilemma is that we look before and after, and pine for what is not. We are always worrying about our past, worrying about the chances that we missed in our past. We are worrying about the things that we lost in the past. We are worried about people that we lost in our past. So we are always either looking towards our past, or we are looking towards future. We are looking at the future and worrying about the future. And he says, we pine for what is not. Another dilemma of of mortals, of us mortals, is that we pine, we desire for what does not exist, for what is not, he says, for what does not exist, for something that is not in our reach. We desire for it, we long for it, and now when we can't get it, naturally we are saddened. We are never happy. Our sincerest laughter with some pain is frost. And he says, even when we are happy, even when we are sincerely happy, even when we are sincerely laughing, there is some pain behind. There's always some pain behind it. Our sweetest songs are those that tell of saddest thought. And this is the dilemma of man. This is the dilemma of mortal, that its sweetest, the sweetest of the sweetest song is also always filled with the feeling of pain and sadness. So it's always mixed with sorrow, it's always mixed with sadness. It's not like the song of the skylark, which is only a symbol of happiness. So no man's song, no human song is ever are only a symbol of true happiness. It is happiness mixed with sadness. Yet, he wants to suggest something else here. He says, yet if we could scorn, hate and pride and fear, if we were things born not to shed a tear, I know not how thy joy we ever should come near. Now he's saying, why is it? He's telling us, why is it that we can never be as happy as the skylark? He says, because we are filled with hate, pride and fear. These things have corrupted our heart, have corrupted our soul and mind and our whole body and our existence. He says the feelings of hatred, feelings of pride and feelings of fear, they have so filled up our souls that we cannot become happy. He says, and because also we are prone to shed tears, we are prone to cry, our sadness is manifested through our tears. He says, and because of these feelings, because of these sufferings, we can never experience joy, joy that this bird or this spirit has. Better than all measures of delightful sound, better than all treasures that in books are found, thy skill to poet were, thou scorner of the ground. Now he is here paying tribute to the bird. He's paying tribute to the skylark. And he says, your song is better than all measures of delightful song. So you see what he's doing? He compared the bird's song to so many different objects, so many different things throughout the poem, and now he gives you his verdict, he gives you his conclusion. He compared the song of the bird to a poet's words, to a poet's poem, to the glowworm spreading light, to maiden's song, to the maiden's music. He compared it to the rose's fragrance, to the sound of the rain. Then he spoke about why is it that it cannot be happy. He also compared the skylark to the moon, to the star, to the cloud, to different objects. But then he says, now your song, it is better than all measures of delightful song. There is no sound that is comparable to your song. No song that is comparable to your song. It is better than all treasures that in books are found. This is all treasures. No treasure, no amount of treasure, gold or diamonds can bring so much happiness as your song can. Or no wealth of ideas, intellectual, philosophical ideas, he says, which are found in so many intellectual books, he says, they also fall short in wisdom, in beauty, in front of your singing, in front of your song. Thy skill to poets were, thou scorner of the ground. Now the bird, he says, hardly ever stays on the ground, it flies in the sky. This is why the poet calls it the scorner, thou scorner of the ground. He says, you are teaching this a skill to the poet. Teach me half the gladness that thy brain must know. Such harmonious madness from my lips would flow, the world should listen then as I am listening now. He's not now doing what he did in the Ode to the West Wind. The way he asked the West Wind to become a source of inspiration for him, and he asked the West Wind to, or he asked to be one with the West Wind. He wanted a share in the power of the West Wind so that he could spread his ideas. And he could bring about change like the West Wind could. In the same way here, now he's asking the bird to teach him. But he's not here asking him not to teach him or to share or he's not asking a share in the power, but or in the strength. He's asking him, the bird to teach him the gladness, the art to stay happy, the art to stay glad, the art to stay joyous. Such harmonious madness from my lips would flow, the world would listen then as I am listening now. You see, he says he's asking the bird to teach him the art of gladness, not how to sing a song, but how to stay happy, how to stay glad. And then he says, reason is because he says, when I have learned that art, when I have learned to be as happy as you are, from my lips too would flow the song or the music that would arouse the world from its slumber, that would wake it up, that would shake them out of the state they are in. And the whole world would listen to me. He says, as I am listening to you, they will be as captivated by my words as I am by your singing or by your song. So he is actually seeking inspiration from the bird to spread his own message. But here you see that he does it in a different manner than he does it in Ode to the West Wind. But towards the end, it is all about seeking inspiration, as it was in the previous poem. He wants the bird and the song of the bird to be used to spread his own message. He wants the song of the bird to affect him also, and to fill him with the energy, with inspiration, to produce poems, to produce a song, to produce words that would bring about change in the people's ideas, in people's feelings, and they would be able to share his ideas, his feelings, his emotions. And as a result, Shelley envisions, Shelley sees and hopes for a better world for the future, in the future. So with this we come to the end of the poem, the Skylark. And as you saw, there was at the heart of the poem, the theme of the poem, the message of the poem was similar to the previous poem. Although he adopts a method which is slightly different, he adopts a language also that is different. These are shorter sentences, these are smaller stanzas, maybe less forceful, less powerful, less impactful, but nevertheless it is as beautiful and as convincing as the Ode to the West Wind. The themes also, let's take a brief look at the themes emerging from this poem. You shall see are common. The theme, there's a theme of the power of the natural world once again. The skylark, although he refers to it as a spirit, but it is an object of the natural world. It assumes the status of a spirit because for Shelley it is something which has got a soul of its own, which can teach, which can impart lessons, and which has a moral to give. And the second theme is where he's lamenting the human condition. It is the same theme that he took up in Ode to the West Wind, where he was talking about the degenerating values and the systems that was degenerating in his times. And the third theme is the power of imagination, and which is again similar as it was in the Ode to the West Wind. He showed us through his poetry how imagination can have an impact on the reader's mind. So he uses it powerfully here again. And the last theme, which is powerful even in this poem, is the role of the poet, and the role that a poetry can play in bringing about change or in bringing about reform in the society.